What's up, guys? I'm Chase.
And I'm Landon, and today we're going to be giving you everything you need to know about the upcoming Fragment design Nike Dunk High Beijing and how to come. So first, thank you guys for stopping by to check us out. Let's go over the basic info for this release before we move on. So this Fragment and Nike Dunk collab is set to release next weekend on June 5th at 7 a.m. Pacific and 10 a.m. Eastern time on the Sneakers app, and then on a few other sites that we're going to get to in just a second. And I would expect this to be a Sneakers draw since, recently they pretty much moved most of the hype releases to that. But even with that being said, I wouldn't really trust Sneakers, just like most people don't. So be ready to enter your size when the clock hits the new hour if you can. And then as for pricing, most Dunk Highs usually run around like $120, so these are a little bit higher at $150, but with there being a special collab and like a colorway on these ones, it does make sense to me why that's a little bit more. And then the men's sizing for this release is actually going to start all the way down at 3.5, but there will also be some kid sizing, or I guess little kid sizing technically, that's going to be smaller than that, retailing for $100. But that pretty much covers the date and the time, so let's take a closer look at the overall design and the reason for the hype on these. All right, so Nike stays putting out a ton of dunks over the past year and a half, so some people may be starting to get over the dunk hype and then some people may not, but this is a really nice shoe in my opinion. So this is a collab with Fragment Design, and that name should sound relatively familiar if you've been following shoes even just more recently, because there's been like the Fragment Jordan 3s, the Jordan 35s, and then there was even a Converse and Fragment collab that released not too long ago, and they have even been teasing a Travis Scott Fragment collab and a Fragment design on the Sakai paper waffle. So there's going to be a lot of heat coming soon by Fragment since they've been teaming up with like different brands and different models, shoe models. But for right now, let's go ahead and focus on this one. Okay, last thing. All right, this will be my last piece of side info. But so this is going to be the Beijing colorway, but there's also an expected New York and London color scheme that should be releasing in the fall sometime as well. No concrete release date, but Fragment's just trying to take over right now. But this design itself, I'm pumped. So first off, I really do like the Fragment logo on these shoes. I wanted to cop the Jordan 3 Fragments pretty bad because, that big Fragment logo that shows up on the back of them that replaced, people didn't really end up liking the basic color scheme on those anyways, so the prices did dip. But I try not to buy resale because I'm broke, so we'll leave it at that. But I'm pretty partial on this colorway, to be completely honest, because purple is probably my favorite color on shoes, maybe even in general, and these do have that like dark plum and like black design that goes pretty hard, I think. But other than that, the logo and having like a nice color combo, it really is just kind of the logo tossed onto the back heel for this shoe. Like for the Fragment Jordan 3s, at least they kind of swapped out that Nike Air that you see on the heel. They swapped that out for the Fragment logo and they blew it up on the back. But this is a pretty plain shoe collab on this anyways, and it's a special colorway related to Beijing, so that's going to be part of it too to add to the effect. But that kind of sums up the hype in the overall design, so let's move on. All right, so for raffles and reservations, the release is still about a week out, so there aren't a ton of options at this moment. But as raffles begin to open up, make sure you keep an eye on the how to cop portion of our website, www.shoeware.co, where we will be updating raffles daily, and you can always come back and check out this video and just click the blog post link in the description of this video, and that's going to be another way to get you there as well. But now I'm going to go ahead and let Chase take over so he can let you know what sites are releasing these, what the aftermarket looks like on them, and your best chance on how to cop a pair.
Thanks, Landon. All right, now I'm going to tell you what sites are dropping these dunk highs and at what time. So for like most hyped up dunks, the only place that is really guaranteed to drop them is the Nike Sneakers app, or Nike Sneakers, at 10 a.m. Eastern time. Now with previous releases of the Fragment collabs, there have been other retailers like Concepts, Kith, Bodega, and they have gotten pairs, but most of them have been raffles. So like Landon said, definitely check out our blog post to see if. But moving on, let's look at the average sale prices on the aftermarket. Now, as a disclaimer, the prices you see could change as we move closer to the drop, but also in our blog post, there will be links to all of the marketplaces for you guys to check out closer to the release date. But starting off, StockX is at an average selling price of $425, Goat's in at $950, eBay's close to $700. As for the stock numbers, I predict the stock to be quite low. When it does come down to dunk highs in general, Nike tends to keep the stock relatively low and to produce more colorways than anything. Now, on top of that, this is a refresh of the 2010 colorway, so I have personally already prepared to take my L and move on. Now, the only thing that makes me question if the stock is truly going to be low is that this Fragment is also releasing in little kid sizing like Landon mentioned, which I haven't really seen any limited releases drop in anything but either only men or only women's sizing. So it's just something to keep in mind. As for my resale prediction, it's going to be tough to say. Right now, the aftermarket has some ridiculous margins, but then you also have to take into account the previous Fragment releases. For example, the Fragment that did drop, or the Fragment 3s that did drop last year, had a bunch of hype, even though with its simple colorway. And when it did release, no one was expecting the dip that it took. But even with the dip though, the prices never really hit retail. So I feel like resale is going to be there. And another thing that I wanted to nitpick on is I'm not sure why Nike decided not to do the flip-flop colorway blocking like they did on the original 2010. For those who do not know, the original release had one shoe with the exact opposite colors for everything. So where the shoe was black, the other shoe would have purple and like vice versa. But as for my resale prediction, I'm going to play it safe and predict that these dunks are going to resell from $300 to $400. Now, should you hold or sell these Fragments? Before giving my opinion, I'm going to assume that the whole duration that you're going to be holding onto these for is more than 3 months. Now, for my recommendation, I recommend to hold. Even though the 2021 refresh isn't exactly the same as the 2010 release, there's still a bunch of history attached to this colorway. Also, Nike flat out said that they haven't released this colorway in over a decade. So knowing that, I doubt that they're going to release this for at least another 10 years. So lastly, overall, this is a pretty safe hold with only potential upside.
All right, so that's going to wrap it up for episode 32 of How to Cop for the Nike Dunk High Fragment Beijing. For more sneaker news, our available shoes for sale, and just anything that we do, click the link in our bio and check that out.
Also, feel free to comment and interact below.